explain why the Assembly of Notables failed. The Assembly of Notables failed primarily because its privileged composition made it unwilling to endorse Calon's radical fiscal reforms, because it rejected both the extent and the operational methods of those reforms, and because it insisted that only the Estates General possess the constitutional authority to approve such fundamental changes to the ancient regime. These interconnected factors produced a complete deadlock, leading to the Assembly's dissolution on 25 May 1787. In February 1780, 7 Louis XVI convened the assembly of 144 carefully chosen nominees, princes of the blood, archbishops, noblemen, and other traditional elites, to consider the relief of his peoples, the ordering of his finances, and the reform of various abuses. Calon's package included a territorial subvention, a universal land tax payable in kind by all landowners, a new stamp duty, the abolition of internal customs barriers, and the creation of provincial assemblies. The intention was to bypass the hostile parliaments and secure elite approval for measures that would finally tackle the 112 million livre deficit. Yet the very people whose tax exemptions were threatened were being asked to sacrifice their privileges. As the traditional interpretation holds, they simply refused to bear the burden of increased taxation. This self-interest alone ensured that the Assembly could not fulfill its advisory role. A more nuanced view, advanced by Simon Schama, shows that many notables were actually willing to accept radical change, including the complete elimination of tax exemptions conferred by noble status. Their opposition stemmed instead from the fact that Calon had not gone far enough and from dislike of the operational methods built into his program. For example, the notables insisted that the land tax be paid in cash rather than in kind, arguing that payment in produce would be impractical and open to abuse. They also demanded full verification of the royal accounts before approving any new levies, a demand that exposed Calon's own past extravagance and fatally undermined his credibility. These disagreements over detail turned potential cooperation into outright obstruction. Most damaging of all was the constitutional argument advanced by the Assembly. The scale of the crisis, bankruptcy, bad harvests, and mounting social unrest, convinced many notables that only a root and branch overhaul of the ancient regime could succeed. They repeatedly declared that the Assembly itself lacked the authority to sanction such sweeping reform, and that only a properly representative body, the Estates General, possessed that legitimacy. This stance created an immediate stalemate. The king needed quick approval to restore confidence in royal finances, yet the notables refused to act as a rubber stamp. Even when Calon was replaced by Loménie de Brienne in April 1787, and the Assembly continued under new leadership, the same deadlock persisted. Brienne's attempts to modify the proposals met identical resistance, confirming that the problem lay not merely with one minister, but with the Assembly's composition and constitutional self-limitation. These factors were not isolated. They reinforced one another. The privileged makeup of the 144 members produced both the self-interested rejection of new taxes and the insistence on Estates General approval. Disagreement over operational detail further eroded trust and gave the notables a respectable pretext for delay. By late May 1787, it was clear that the Assembly could neither relieve the financial crisis nor reform abuses. Its failure forced Brienne to turn to the parliaments, triggered the revolt of the privileged, and ultimately compelled Louis XVI to summon the Estates General in 1788. In short, the Assembly of Notables collapsed because an elite advisory body, designed to protect royal authority, proved structurally incapable of sacrificing privilege or accepting constitutional limits, a failure that exposed the terminal weaknesses of the ancient regime itself.